behind the actor studio.
Yes.
There's a garbage bin. That's where I trained.
Yeah.
This handy reception.
Pretty much.
All right. Is everybody?
Yeah. Let's get the show on the road.
And we're rolling.
All right.
We are rolling.
I'll just figure out what date it is.
It is the 31st.
31st.
The 31st.
On Tuesday.
31st?
It is the
Tuesday,
31st.
the 31st
All right.
of March.
Hey everyone, it is March 31, 2015. I'm Renee Ritchie, and right now we're going to talk OOL Conference, Tim Cook, Apple Watch, and photos for OS X?
OS 10.
iOS X?
OS 10.
OS 10.
You never say the X, right?
This is the Steve Jobs book says the X.
Well,
Steve
this
Jobs' book is wrong.
is the iMore show. Joining me this week, we have an illustrious, some would say an incomparable panel. Starting to my right, we have Trinity Caldwell.
Hello, Renee.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm in Ireland.
I
You
know.
can't see. We closed the curtains
Yeah.
so that we wouldn't be backlit, but we're actually behind a beautiful, as those of you who are in our studio audience know, we are behind a beautiful lake where there's
Lots of
mountains,
rain.
or in front of, I suppose. Lots of rain.
Now
A little
that
bit of
side is
sunshine.
whiskey, just entirely filled with whiskey.
and
It's
now
amazing.
this room is exactly as scenic as the podcast listeners will see it.
Yes, pretty much.
Also-
we painted a picture of woods.
Also joining us, we have Georgia Dow. How are you, Georgia?
I'm here. We're actually in our back office. We're not even in Ireland.
Don't ruin the illusion.
Sorry. No,
Alex
we really,
Lindsay set it up
we
for
really
us.
are in Ireland. That's why we're all so tired.
And joining us, our very special guest, Jason Snell.
Thank you for having me. I brought the microphone, so
You
I
did.
appreciate it. You let me
Yes, you
talk
played
into
an
it, too.
integral part.
We
You
had
were-
to.
Yeah, Jason, we are here by the generosity and good grace of Jason Snell. So thank you, Jason.
It's teamwork.
Teamwork.
It's true. It is good teamwork.
So, OOL Conference, Ren, this is our first year here.
Yes, it is, and my first time in Ireland ever, which is super exciting. I'm having a blast so far. I mean, this is our day. Like, this is the iMore show is kind of starting our iMore room for the day. So previous to now, we've just been able to sort of sit back and relax and enjoy the conference attendees, which has been fabulous. There have been great talks, except for Georgia, because Georgia did a talk already today.
Yes.
And
She
it
got
was
a
also
taste.
great.
Yes, it was great. And Jason, I guess you were on stage yesterday. So
Yep.
Renee and I haven't done anything until now.
Finally, you guys. are
We
doing
woke up, we
something.
stumbled out of the hotel room, we sat down in front of Google Hangouts. That's our job so far.
It's a tough job.
No, but the talks have been absolutely fantastic.
One after like Jesse Char, Horace Dedya, Anil Dash. Who else has spoken already?
Sarush,
Sarush.
James.
Yeah,
James
there were.
James Thompson.
Kanye West has been everywhere.
Kanye West is the
Kanye
unsung
conference.
hero of this
Yeah,
conference.
Kanye is not here, but he's on our minds.
He's in
Right.
spirit.
And Georgia, your talk was on motivation.
My talk was on motivation. I was very motivated to get the talk done so that I could relax afterwards. But it was a lot of fun.
And do a podcast and then another talk on motivation.
Yes, that's that's what I'm doing. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of stuff filling up the day.
She's
And
very motivated.
You got to be pretty motivated.
And,
Yeah.
and we were on the little show with.
Yeah, you got to find out what I go through every time I record debug with Guy English.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Guy's interview style is idiosyncratic.
It's endearing.
It is. It is. We all love Guy. So it
Yeah.
was fun having you guys as guests. And we got to ask you questions.
It's true.
Act like you didn't really know us.
Exactly. Oh, tell me more.
It was
about
a little
that.
bit like Crossfire. It was a little bit intimidating. I just want to get that out in the open.
We were there to make you look good.
Okay.
You were a good Jon Stewart. Just saying.
Okay.
You're
the
more
the
pulled
Daily
out.
Show guest,
Yeah.
the South, who's the South
Yeah, there's a
African
new
who's
South-
replacing
That's true. I
I
Jon
don't remember
Stewart.
his name. Does anyone remember his name?
Trevor something.
Trevor.
Trevor Noah. Thanks.
That's it.
I knew he had two first names.
If mean Trevor Noah from South Africa, it's going to be a bloody good show when he takes over.
So that's Renee playing the bad guy on the
In
podcast.
every
Yes.
movie.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, so OOL is fantastic. It's a single-track conference in the tradition of C4, Singleton, well, a bunch of awesome,
Yeah.
a bunch of awesome shows, and they've done a great job moving it forward. State of the conference art.
Yeah, no, I mean, I really enjoy, as I was saying, there's a camera crew wandering around getting everybody's opinions on OOL, and as I was saying to them, what I find really sort of special about OOL is that you have the traditional conference tracks, and then you have sort of the varying lengths. You have the full length, you have the lightning talks that are going on today, but you also have these rooms, these experiences. I know we've got, of course, the time machine, which
Yeah.
I'm really excited to try. This is its second iteration. From Jason, I mean, you spoke a little bit more with Jennifer. right?
I have. Yes, I've been in the time machine, not the 2.0.
The original one.
I was in the original time machine. I
Yes.
lived to tell
Was
the
that the
tale.
flux capacitor, and this year it's the TARDIS?
The time machine technology is under wraps, and they're not really talking about the details of
He
how the time
actually
machine
went
works.
forward in time to this moment right
This
now.
is
so it's
Sunday's
only
Jason, right?
moments
This is
to
Sunday's
go.
Jason.
Jennifer Brooke, who runs the time machine, is very courteous as a machine operator. She drops you off back more or less where you left off. So that way you avoid a lot of nasty
Amy Pond
complications.
is now 18 or 19, but that could
Yeah, you don't
there
wanna-
are no
you don't wanna
weeping
do that.
angels involved, please.
So while we were here, Apple News continued. It didn't stop just for our benefit.
How dare they?
How dare they? There are some ongoing things. We still we're finding out more and more about the Apple Watch experience, and I want to apologize. I want to take this moment to whoever works at Apple retail and whichever specialist gets Georgia. I want to apologize in advance because if you've ever seen her at a restaurant, she's going to go in and she's going to say, "Can I have the steel watch with this band on the side? Can I have this band, the leather loop on the left and the Milanese on the right?" You're going to make them cry.
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have to try on all the watches, even the ones I know I'm not going to like because maybe I'm wrong. So I'm going to go through them. I'm going to try them on my tiny, minute, childlike wrists. And then I'm going to decide if I get a large watch face so I can steal your bands, or am I going to get the one that's probably suited for my minute arms. But you have to test out the experience. I think everyone should, if you're thinking of getting the Apple Watch, you should try it out and see so that you can feel.
Serenity did. She had almost every watch imaginable on.
Not on at the same time, you're conflating. But it'd be really cool. I would really love to be able to pull up my sleeve and just be Apple Watches. If I still worked at Apple Retail,
That's how they sell them in New York.
yeah, I would just, yeah, exactly. That's how you're going to see it on a street corner.
Hey
in
lady,
about 2
want to
weeks'
buy an
time.
Apple Watch?
We got them in
That
38
says
and
which.
42.
You're not gonna believe it.
So there's a picture. I just uploaded all of my photo library to iCloud Photo Library. I kind of like took the plunge, and now there are 20,000 photos, and it's like a little intimidating. But I was going through past ones, and there's a great shot of me in 2009, 2010, when 2009, when I still worked for Apple Retail, where you know the iPod Nanos, you get like little armbands, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was Christmas holidays, and during Christmas, anybody who's ever been into an Apple retail store, it gets a little bit crazy to the point where, you know, employees are working 8 to 12-hour shifts. It's we're all a little
You're dealing
tired,
with
we're
us.
all a little loopy. The stores are open till midnight. So at one point in time, I took the iPod Nano armbands, I put them on like gauntlets, and then I just went around basically Wonder Woman.
Serenity outside the sky rocks.
Yeah,
She's
pretty much.
defending from Android shots.
Yeah, yeah. So the long and short of it is, if I ever went back to work at Apple, that's probably what I would do during the holiday season with Apple Watches. And I really hope someone does that and takes a picture, because it would make my heart happy.
Send it.
If you're planning to leave your career at Apple Retail, that is the best possible way to go.
Yeah, just don't do it with the Edition, because the security might get nervous.
Jason, you tried them all on. Are you conflicted about sizing?
No, I'm comfortable with a larger watch, so I'm okay with it. It's a harder thing maybe than I expected, but I'm okay
Yeah,
with
'cause
the
they're
larger
both
watch.
medium size.
The larger watch isn't that much larger. It's not. Yeah, you're exactly right. This isn't a choice between large and
Like
small.
46 and 32.
This is larger, medium, and smaller medium.
Yeah.
Unless you have wrists like this, yeah. In which case, actually, you know what? I tried on both 38 and 42, and the 42 is not terrible. The 42 is actually totally usable on a tiny, small wrist. It just feels, in pictures to me, and just in general usage, it feels slightly clunkier on a small wrist than the 38 does. The 38 feels like a piece of jewelry on a small wrist. The 42 feels like a smartwatch on a small wrist.
So
It's the difference between the real estate area, though, because like really my thought is like being able to touch the screen. I would rather a larger screen and versus aesthetics of I think that the smaller watch would look nicer on me.
And that's kind of my eventual thing, where having tested both the 38 and the 42 at the hands-on areas, both in September and again earlier this month, the 38 to me does not feel navigationally wise that much smaller to me than the 42. So for me, that kind of, between that and the aesthetic niceties of it, again, it's like if it was just about a smartwatch and just like needing the smartwatch power, then the 42 makes sense for my small wrist. But like Apple is intended, like Apple
iPhone
is
6 Plus
intentional.
with watches.
Yeah, no. It's Apple is marketing these things as fashion accessories, and if Apple's marketing these things as fashion accessories, and they're taking the time to make it look like potentially a piece of jewelry, I might as well get the one that is properly sized for my wrist so that I can wear it without,
Right. Plus, you're still going to have your phone. So if you want to play a game, or if you want to surf the web, or you want to read all of the email all at once, you can still actually open your purse or take it out of your
Like
pocket.
an animal.
And,
Like an animal.
and look at it there. So I think that that's a fair.
Let me ask you this, Jason. So I'm not going to ask Serenity because she would actually know the answer to this, and it's more fun if I ask you. But if you were working at Apple Retail and someone came in for their 15 minutes or their hour of luxury edition time, what sort of recommendations would you make if your family, if your friends say, how do I get the most out of my time with the watch? Yeah. Having tried it a couple times. Would you say that pick the case first, go for the bands first, make the salesperson cry first?
I think you start with the software. I think you show them why this fits into their lives and why they want to add this to their iPhone. And then yeah, I think you look at the bands and all the different band combinations because it's confusing. As a potential Apple Watch buyer myself, I am confused by all the different options and am convinced that some of them I have to try on. So getting that try on time and saying, oh, did you know that the Milanese loop doesn't pinch your arm hairs and is super soft even though it's metallic, and to let them have that experience so that they know, oh, I am confident buying this, or oh no, I can't wear that band. That's really important because then you're making a pretty large purchase. So getting that extra time in early, I think.
It stresses me though. The idea of 15 minutes, knowing that I have a deadline, it makes me go in there and worry about my time already.
So here's the thing about that. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't actually think that I'm going to feel worried about it because that's actually the truth. But once I'm there, at least I'm getting some hands-on experience. Like for you, you've already gotten to do it, but at least I'm going to I already have an idea in my mind. I think that budgeting for me is going to be a huge issue. One, because I know next year I'm buying another Apple Watch. So I'm probably not going to want to spend a ton of money, but the bands I'm going to get to keep. So that I might want to spend a little bit more of an investment on, and just to feel, does it pinch the arm hairs? Are they cold? How heavy are they? How easy are they to clasp on my arm? Are the
that's a good thing
metallic ones going to fall off?
We don't have official confirmation of this, but it's been suggested that the bands would linger for a generation or two.
Well, and unless the form factor of the Apple Watch either significantly changes or is significantly reduced in width or in depth, I suppose, we are going to presumably be able to use the same class mechanism.
Right.
Probably not forever because Apple has a tendency to change ports and things like that.
Just floppy drive that.
Yeah, exactly. That's like they will do the Lightning port version of the Apple Watch band.
To that point, and we tried them on in September and we tried them on in March, and the hardware had improved.
Oh yeah.
Not just the software, but like everything about the watch had gotten substantially better in just that short amount of time.
Yeah, I mean Apple's certainly not sitting on their laurels back in Cupertino being like, do. I guess we have a watch.
You're playing Galaga. We can see you're playing Galaga.
I'm just using these keys. No, I mean they're spending a significant amount of time. This is the first major post Steve Jobs product, and it's not. I don't think that anyone on the executive team is necessarily like biting their nails the way that some analysts are like, Apple is doomed. Steve Jobs would never, I don't think they're not in that mindset, but I do think that they want to make a good impression and they really want to make sure that this product, which they Cook clearly cares about and is clearly invested in, they want to make sure that that's set the stage and as good as it possibly can be. I wouldn't be surprised if they weren't tweaking like little bits in the hardware and software until,
it felt different, and you could tell that they changed the processing on the aluminum one. I believe is laser now. And it's not quite as Spider-Man sticky as the stainless steel one now. They've got a little bit different edging. And some people might like that because it sticks to your finger a little bit more. And some people might find they don't like it because it sticks to your finger a little more.
You might end up pressing it in while you're trying to
spin. Or there's going to be some usability. And the thing that shocked me is Serenity and I a couple times saw people wearing like the Milanese band or the Link bracelet and thought it was a stainless steel, and it wasn't. It was the aluminum. And I know some people, like Louis Manchep, can spot that from 300 miles away and say, no, that's your metal conflict. But I was fooled, so I don't think there's any problem with getting aluminum and then getting like a nicer band if you want.
No, I don't think so at all. And there are plenty of Apple engineers out in the wild in San Francisco and elsewhere kind of wearing these and sort of beta testing in the general atmosphere. And we've seen some just wandering around San Francisco and being in the area.
Just the watches.
Exactly. The watches are just there. They're floating around in midair. No, but like on people's wrists, and there's a wide variety of band combinations with the stainless steel, with the aluminum. Like they
look great.
Yeah, they do. They really do.
It's hard to describe because people see them in pictures and they look so much better, in person than they do even in the pictures. I think that's going to be the thing that people notice in the try-on area.
So for people that are going to want to buy the watch, Renee, do you say if they're going to be buying another watch in a year, in which cases would you say that they might get the stainless steel instead of just going with the sports?
So I mean, like, so this is my whole spiel on this. I mean, we saw people there at the event who think nothing of buying $20,000 dresses they wear once, or taking a $25,000 trip to the Emirates, or like all sorts of things that they do with their money because it's their money. And this, some people will just wait for the second generation. I want this now, so I'm willing to pay $350, $1 a day, to have the future right now. And some people, I think, once they decide they're going to get the watch, they are just stainless steel watch people, just like some people are gold watch people. And for them, the material is going to be less than the idea of buying the watch. They'll choose to buy the watch, and whatever their socioeconomic conditions are, they'll get the watch that they would get normally, like from a watch boutique.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely am leaning more towards aluminum than stainless steel, in part because I want to kind of stress test it a bit with roller derby, and in part because
It's a polite way of putting it. It's going to hit people with it.
I'm not going to hit people with it. It might get hit in the process of roller derby. No, I mean, I don't want to put too much investment in it up front because, again, I want the future. I want the software. I want to be able to see what the watch experience is going to bring to my day-to-day. But I'm also despite being bullish on the watch, I also don't want to put so much money into a first generation product that, by the time the second generation comes out and it's twice as fast, I'm going to feel very foolish for dropping $800-900. So I feel like, at least in my socioeconomic standpoint, where it's like I am privileged enough to be able to buy a new iPhone every year and a watch, probably every year, but $650, $700 is still a lot of investment. So as a result, like seeing where I can, alleviate that cost a little bit and focusing on like what I can reasonably spend without making my accountant cry is probably
Cut the accountant, you can afford it now.
Yeah, if only.
Jason, I don't know if you heard this too, but there were a couple of people at the event who, like, there were some fashion people. You could tell they were fashion people because they had like hair that doesn't exist in nature and layers of clothing, and it looked like
It's like the Hunger Games.
It was it really did, or the Fifth Element. And they were saying, like, this is Johnny Ive at the height of his powers. This is Mark Newsom, the exemplification of all his skills. 30 years of craft, and they were going to get stainless steel or gold because it was first edition, and they wanted a first edition Ive or Newsom on the shelf.
That's a really interesting way of thinking of it as a bit of history. To put on their shelves with all the dresses that they wore one time.
Well, it's going to be in Steve Smith's collection one day, right?
Yeah.
In the museum.
Well, yeah, you think about the museum, right? Where it's like I have my dad's original iPhone, so I didn't get the original. I waited until the 3G, which but I still have that original casing, and then there is something to be said about our old products.
You have your Cube, right?
Yeah, I still have my Cube. I still have the Duo. Like I have a wide variety of older Macs. I still have my Classic, which I spent untold hours on as a kid. So being able to have those products, I definitely understand the appeal of both from a sentimental value and from a these are collectibles in a certain way. They may not be $20,000 pieces of artwork that you hang on the wall. They may not necessarily but they still they have a place in some people's homes, just the way that other people might spend it on autographed posters or movies.
Memorabilia.
Yeah, people get attached to their stuff, and if Apple means a lot to you and that's a part of your life that you want to remember, then you might choose to keep hold of it. For myself, I am going to enjoy the watch, but I don't see that there's going to be, since they are exactly the same except for differences in color and durability, which I'm going to destroy the watch after a year, no matter what watch I have. I could have a adamantium watch and it will not survive a year.
With Georgia Dow.
No, it's not going to happen. Get Apple Care. That's my first thing.
Being part of the Avengers is harder than
Second rule, get Apple Care.
Did Georgia just make a Marvel Comics reference before you? Really?
Yes.
I'm so proud. I'm so proud.
Yeah, that's
a
it.
little bit more.
I know.
Everything changes.
I am disappointed in you.
Well, no, being in Ireland is like you are literally people who live here. Like, you are 6 hours in the future. I just tweeted out this podcast, and I realized it was 9:30 a.m. back in New York time, and 6:30 a.m. back in San Francisco time. And when I'm there, it feels like I'm living in the past. Now it really how come you guys don't have the lottery numbers?
Are you about to make a Flash reference again?
All of these
DC
products,
Comics reference before me.
and yet all of these products that make us feel like we're living in the future are made In California.
Yeah, well, designed in California.
Yeah, made in
Well,
China.
They're
which is even
manufactured
more
12 hours
adventure.
ahead. Yeah.
Oh, that's true. They
Yeah.
send them
Even
from
more-
the past to the
Yeah.
future.
Right.
Do
I
you
see
think
now.
that do you think that China has hoverboards and they're just not telling us?
We have everything in the night. Would you tell us?
Yeah,
We're
it's
horrible
fair.
people.
It's fair.
It's probably. a
I
good
wouldn't
idea.
ship if I had found the secret to hoverboards and I was in China and I was like, you know what? They can't see.
Give them
hoverboard
iPhones. They won't even
anyway.
ask about the
exactly.
hoverboard. It's just throw
We'll make Apple watches.
They
Forget
just
it.
make this
Yeah.
is almost big enough to be
Yeah, hoverboard.
one-footed
Yeah.
hoverfoot board.
So my biggest problem is, I have this problem when I go to restaurants, and it's my version of driving Georgia crazy, is I can't decide until the last minute, then I panic and I blurt something out. And it's going to be the same thing in the watch. I'm going to go there, I'm going to say the only acceptable alternative is the carbon black stainless steel with the black band. And I'm going to say, but then no, you can't get other bands. You're going to have to go to the stainless steel, like the silver stainless steel. But then you might as well get the aluminum because it looks the same with the band. And then, but what about the black aluminum? Oh, now I have the band problem again. And I just feel like this perseverating and circling in my head.
And then you blurt out, gold, gold, gold,
Yeah.
gold, gold, gold.
And that's how Renee walked home
And
with
then
$30,000 of gold on
No
his
car.
That was,
Yeah.
I only had 17. You were the one for 35.
Yeah, 35, 37,
Yeah.
38. I don't know.
She was like, I want to try all the gold.
Yeah, I mean,
At once.
I blame the PR reps. I did not expect to have 2 watches on my wrist.
And there was, we actually got to hang out a little bit at the table and see like the retail process, and it's pretty cool. So you have this like an Apple retail table, and they have these glass covered watches in it. You can look at them and see them all. And then the sales rep has this special badge that they can tap on the side of it, and this beautiful drawer just opens up like I don't know, magic, Apple magic.
It's like a little, it's like a hidden drawer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just
beneath
like
the
it
table.
slides out, and inside are these
and then
little
gold, like
holes.
Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
It's like it is just, that's what's in Marcellus Wallace's briefcase. All this time.
Apple Watch edition.
Apple Watch edition. He had it
Why
20
not
years
told
ago.
us? Yeah.
And then they have all the watches in there, and they can take them out, and you can try them on. And then, like, if you don't buy it, it goes back in the case. Back inside there.
No, you know what? I bet they're just try-on models. I bet
Yeah.
they're, you know,
No, they
the
are. They run the loop
yeah,
software.
Exactly. And then
So
everything
that if
else
you
just
grab them and run,
You just get the case.
They're-
Yeah.
they're
Just get-
useless.
But they
Yeah.
do the taps. And they do let you. The loop. It's the same loop, I think. Oh, a new version.
The
of loop
ones
got
that we saw in September.
Yeah,
Where it does tap and it does give you the full experience.
And
you
you
get
can
the feel
explore a
without
little
the
bit.
full watch experience. So you
Yeah.
still have to buy the watch.
What I really love about this is that the thing that always makes me really nervous in jewelry stores, and I haven't gone into many, because again, they make me really nervous. You go up to the glass case, and you kind of have to like look awkwardly. You're like, oh yeah, that's nice. And then a tenant comes over and is like, oh, do you need me to unlock this, ma'am? And then there's the whole process of like lifting up the glass, and you're afraid, what if they drop it? And then all of a sudden I'm responsible for untold thousands of dollars in glass shattering all over. It's a panicky thing. With an Apple Watch display, the glass stays intact.
Yeah.
The glass never has to be lifted. It's all under the table, above board. But
And plus, they're much friendlier, right?
Yeah.
They're not trying to intimidate you. They want people to go in, try on the watch, get attached to it, and then, like a new puppy, you have to take it home.
today.
This is the
That's-
watch you were looking for.
Exactly. So that experience of saying, you know what, you can come in, please try it on, even if you're not going to buy it. That's a great user experience versus having a really expensive, high-end, jewelry company where they don't want you to touch it because they're so worried that you're going
Well,
to
that's what
take
happens
it.
to me. I walk in there, they go, no, sir, the Gap is next door.
You walk into any Apple store and they all
No,
just
not an Apple store. The
rush.
jewelry store
Yeah.
Serenity was talking about. Like they see me coming, the gate just starts closing.
This is, if you think about it, this is a product that you really need to be a company that's got an incredibly strong retail presence to sell.
Google tried barges.
Yeah, imagine if you were trying to sell this product and you didn't have, I mean, this is the difficulty with a lot of the Android stuff, is you can't really try them on many places.
No.
You can just order one and see if you like it and send it back if you don't. But with Apple, they've got that retail power and they can use it.
Turns out when you
And-
plan strategically and invest over
Turns
time.
out.
You have all oodles of money, but they also get to control the user experience, which if they were turning it over to a different place, they would have to give the user experience
Right.
that who knows what it might
Well, like
be.
I think Suffrages and those the department stores, it's still going to be Apple trained staff.
Oh,
So,
yeah, no question.
Inside their little special Apple Watch
Little Apple
store.
area.
store.
Yeah, well, the retail stores have really been one of Apple's great triumphs because you think about all the way back in 2000, 2001, I know so many people who bought a Mac directly as a result of, oh, I wandered into an Apple store one day and I found myself playing with one maybe on a break, and then I came back another month, and then before I know it, I'm walking out with an iPod, an iPhone, 2 Macs, and a MacBook Air. It's like, it's the halo effect. It comes in slow, and then it kind of rushes on you like a tidal wave.
Right.
But the ability to actually try out these things in stores, like imagine an Apple where the stores didn't exist and Apple tried to sell the phone.
Yeah.
Like the iPhone was one of those things that sounded really nifty when you saw the keynote announcement, of course. Like Steve Jobs' on-stage performance was next to none. But
We get it.
even with that, I was really skeptical because we'd all seen touch screens up until that point, you know. Resistive touchscreen technology, not very impressive. It's like, all right, yes, I've used this in a movie theater. I'm tapping, I'm trying to scroll, and it's super slow. And Steve Jobs can show me that all this magical multi-touch technology, it's not resistive, it's capacitive, it's very different. But until you actually pick up the thing in your hand and you actually feel the responsiveness of the scroll and you're able to interact with the various apps, I think that's the true selling point of an Apple device, is actually feeling how easy it is to use.
So there's one thing you can't really try, and that is the day-to-day life experience. If you're going to have this gizmo on your wrist, you have to feed it every midnight. You can't get it that wet.
Give me
Gremlins.
Love me the Gremlins references. But that you really are going to have to learn you're adding this to your thing. It's one more thing to charge. It's one more thing to take care of. It's going to add incredible convenience to you, but it's also going to add a little bit of overhead.
It's going to be the cost versus benefits ratio, and you really want to make sure, and I think that Apple's going to do a great job with this. One is that people are going to understand it's not going to become too cumbersome, it's not going to become too anxiety for them, because really having, at least with your phone, if you have it off, or if you have it on Do Not Disturb, I have no sounds on it, and you put it into your purse, you're not going to be constantly notified of different things. And so that's my greatest worry, is that now I will know that you are ignoring all of my iMessages because it's on
No,
your wrist.
right now it's like,
How could
Georgia,
you,
the
Renee?
house is on fire and it's sitting in your purse over there.
That is true. That is true. I could have gotten 18 messages. I don't know anything.
Including Jason saying you turned your mic off 5 minutes ago.
Right. Exactly. But I think that that's going to be one of the big differences of people to get used to, is how do they interact with something that's going to be sending them messages just to them immediately, 24/7.
All right, so Jason, the trials start on the 10th. Should people go immediately? Should the minute the appointments are available, should they get the first one? Should they line up, or should they just take their time and watch? Like, let's send the test subjects first and see how they do. And then if it's safe,
Depends on how bad you want it. I mean, I would imagine if you're one of the first people in the door, you will be beta testing the new sales procedures from the store employees, and that could be entertaining. But I mean,
One way to put it.
how excited are you?
Well, there's
about
no carrier
ordering that
sign up
watch?
at least.
Yeah, this is true. But it's a very different way of approaching a product. So there'll be a learning curve for everybody. But you know, I think it depends on your excitement about buying the watch. It's going to completely determine how.
Is anyone here getting it immediately? All right,
Not
well,
the
we're,
room,
yeah, we're at a nerd conference,
Yeah,
so
we
we're going to
got
nerd
nerd.
conference.
The
Self-selected.
survey is a little.
You saw it. Everyone
Yeah, every
lifted
hand in
their
the room
hand.
went up.
Yes.
And a couple people listed 2 hands, and I think that just...
One for each wrist.
One for,
Yeah.
one for friends.
All right, so
One for
switching
friends.
gears slightly, we have the new photos for OS 10 coming out.
Yeah.
That's going to hit with 10.8.3.
10.10.3.
Yeah,
9.7.
10.10.3.
10.10.3.
Yeah. Make up a song for it if you need it.
I need a jingle. This is Apple's plan to fundamentally change the way that we deal with photography. They're making photography a system-level feature. They don't want people to be, moving SD cards, using cables, backing up to Dropbox, to NAS servers. They want you to take photos on your iPhone. It goes to iCloud Photo Library. They want you to import stuff into Photos for OS 10, and it goes into your iCloud library. They want to manage your storage. We had that conversation with Leo on MacBreak, where he's like, I can't delete the photos on my phone. And we're like, because they would just sync back. I think it's going to be a fundamental change on how people approach their photography.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting in the sense that I have so many photos now, and my primary Macs don't have enough storage to hold the originals, which means I have to offload them into other places where they're not accessible to me without a lot of pain. And I want to have that whole library just at my fingertips. So the premise is really great. I think the problem is Apple is in the process of working out what happens in all sorts of different scenarios. The one that I found out is if you've got 20,000 photos in your iPhoto cloud library, your iOS devices want to download little thumbnails of all of them. You can take up like tens of gigabytes of storage on your iPhone without downloading the full resolution photos, and that's just not going to work. There has to be some state that happens when Apple's like, whoa, you've got a lot of photos in your library that that is just going to load them on the fly instead of
Just in time.
and they'll work on it because the promise is so great that it's in the cloud. So theoretically, that means that you've got a cloud copy.
I don't want to let go. I have been meticulously managing and manually tagging. I've been doing everything. It feels like cars are automatic now, and I still want to shift them. Like I don't know if I want to let go.
Well, the thing, like I really appreciate a manual car, right? Like a 5-speed, it's really fun to drive. You have a certain amount of control over it. But you know what a 5-speed really sucks at is sitting in traffic. Like if you're stuck in bumper to bumper, having to shift to stop.
In your Lamborghini.
It's hard to drive and put on your makeup as well.
Well, yeah, all right. So going back to computers for a second, like iCloud photo library, I was very nervous about it because like most of us, I have spent a long time curating my photos, and I had one really horrible photos backup disaster in 2007, which resulted in me losing about 10 years of photos, which was really scary. About pretty much all the photos I had taken digitally and scanned up to that point. So I'm wary about trusting digital services with my photography. I just took the bullet and uploaded everything to the most recent beta. So I have 20,000 photos in the cloud. I think I mentioned that earlier. And it is surprisingly functional. I was pulling up the storage that has been taken up on my phone. So I have Optimize turned on for my 20,000 photos. And it's loading.
Yeah, that takes a while.
But no, so optimized storage, what I find really interesting about it is it's not just we're going to take up a flat part of your device. If you're going to say optimize and I only want to keep my favorites on my phone and please delete as I need space, it actually looks at how big your device is as well as how much space your device is taking up with other needs. So if you have, say, a 20 gig music library, and it appropriately balances it from there. So I have Optimize on right now, and I have a 64 gig phone. I've used 42.2 gigabytes of space. There's 8.3 gigabytes of photos, but I also have 13.7 gigabytes available on my phone. So even with Optimize turned on, my photo library, Apple didn't say, oh, she has 20 gigabytes on her phone. Let's dump all of that into photos. Apple kind of looks and says, all right, with takes an algorithm and says, okay, we have this much space to work with. We want to give this person this much space because we think that they still might want to download, say, apps or be able to access the internet and not have their phone crash.
iTunes Match.
Yeah, because they're out of space. So we'll allot X amount of space. And that space grows or shrinks depending on what necessarily you're doing with your phone.
And it's biased, right?
Really,
so like favorited pictures will be there,
yes.
Most recent pictures will be there, frequently accessed photos will be there.
The photos you haven't looked at in 4 years.
Those selfies
thumbnails.
from 2008, those will be safely stored in the cloud or no one has to see them.
Yeah, which I really appreciate because as you were saying, Jason, like the nervousness about optimized photos is well, I don't want it to be the way that I've been managing my iPhoto library up till now, which is take 30 gigs of photos and try and squeeze it onto my MacBook Air and then offload everything else onto an external drive.
I've seen Georgia, she originally had a smaller iPhone, and she wanted to take a photo, and she had to decide which photo she was willing to delete to take new ones. And Georgia her husband Anthony is in IT department. He literally is an IT department, and he would have to manage this with on her computers, other devices. Are you going to go in on this?
I'm probably not. One is I like to have control, and so I'm probably going to run backups, but I don't like having all of my photos on the cloud. It's something that bothers me. It's still a discomfort to me, and it also is an issue of privacy. So I also deal sometimes with photos of clients, photos of like credit cards to be able to transfer things, photos of other things that really I have to make sure that those are immediately deleted afterwards. So for me, because I'm taking photos of children doing things or art that they've created or having to send receipts to separate clients, it's not going to be workable for me. And I don't think that Apple is going to have a viable solution.
You need Dave Wiskus' private camera mode. Go to, just like private browsing, you press private camera mode, those photos aren't stored anywhere. And they just expire after.
Yeah, that would be really awesome.
That could work. I'd have to
start that up. Somebody kickstart that.
Yeah, just take a look. Yeah.
Jason, are you going to stay all in, or is this an experiment for you? Are you photo curious?
I would like it to work. If it works, I will use it mostly because I like the idea of essentially having iPhoto, now the Photos app, but it's very much iPhoto. with everything in it on all my devices, including that iMac with the SSD and that MacBook Air with the SSD, because right now I can't look at those photos, and it's really frustrating that I don't have access to my entire library because it's just too big for my devices without plugging in an external drive, and that's slow and is a mess. So I want it to work. The cost of paying for iCloud storage right now is awfully high. There are competing cloud storage systems out there, but they just don't work as well with Apple stuff. So that makes me more inclined to use Apple stuff, even though it's more expensive.
What's the Amazon price now for unlimited?
Well, if you're in Prime, it's free, and it's for unlimited photos, and it's like $15 a year for unlimited photo storage.
Pretty ridiculous.
And Apple is still, is it $19.99 a month for a terabyte?
I think it's
it's
a lot.
It's too much.
I'll be interested to see if they readjust that in the coming months and year after they actually roll out iCloud Photo Library. But like I've been using Dropbox up till now to store my entire photo library, where I just plopped my like 40, 50 gig iPhoto library into Dropbox. And some people are a little bit wary about that because iPhoto has some weird plist issues that occasionally result when you're syncing. But like I really like that in some ways, because it means like, okay, great, all of my photos are there. But the ease of use of being able to pull them up while offline, the thing that I actually really like about iCloud Photo Library, I was stuck on a plane without Wi-Fi, gas by now, 2015. Just a small.
Might as well live in Canada.
I know. So it's like, I mean, I was looking for something to do because I had forgotten to download a book that I wanted to read, and I was just looking through my photos, and I discovered that even though I was completely offline, and I have optimized storage on, so I only really have, you know, the last 1,000 or so stored on my phone. iCloud Photo Library's sort of thumbnail capture allows you to see low-res versions of all of your photos, and it allows you to manage and delete them. You can do pretty much everything except edit them without having the full-res copy downloaded to your device. So I was actually able to go through a bunch of photos and screenshots and stuff that I had taken way back in 2012, 2013, that I had just never had any time to manage. And I managed to do like all of this cleanup, putting things into albums, everything when I was offline, and a little voice in the back of my head is like, this probably isn't gonna work. Like I probably just wasted 2 hours.
Mobile me.
Yeah, exactly. I probably wasted 2 hours of my life, and this is all gonna reset the second it connects to the internet. But then I get on the ground and I turn my phone back on, and everything synced perfectly. Sank, yes.
Synced.
No, so all of that work that I was able to do offline and being able to view 10, 20,000 photos while offline is really special. Like even if they're low-res copies, like if you're looking for that perfect internet meme, or you're looking for that dumb picture of you when you were a kid, or your kid when they were, you know, very small.
Kid was a kid.
Normally you'd have to, like if in my Dropbox scenario, I'd have to pull up Dropbox. I'd have to have a Wi-Fi connection unless I favorited the photo. I'd have to scroll through and see if I could find it, and then finally pull it up. With iCloud Photo Library, it was as simple as being like, photos, go out to year, find the day, tap in,
That's amazing.
low res thing. It's just like that kind of ease of use and that kind of simplicity makes me very hopeful. Again, there's a lot of syncing questions to be worked out. There's a pricing thing to be worked out. Like I really don't like the fact that I have to pay now for Dropbox and iCloud Photo Library and Beats and iTunes Match, and like it's a lot of subscription services, and we haven't even gotten to pay per TV yet. So.
Well, the one thing that I was happy about is that if you do have one Mac that has a big beefy drive or an external drive, and you download originals to this Mac, you can then back that up over Time Machine, or back that up over SuperDuper, or even CrashPlan or Backblaze, and then you have you have your 2 local copies and you have your 2 cloud copies, and you're a responsible internet citizen, and your precious moments are safe and secure.
Or you can do the even more ridiculous thing, which is you can store originals to your Mac and have your library still belong in Dropbox. So not only are you downloading it to your Mac, you're downloading everything up to Dropbox. Everything's separate. Yes.
Photoception.
Yep.
All right, so we should be seeing that some point between now and WWDC, hopefully sooner rather than later, fingers crossed, and hopefully it works really, really well with chips. Tim Cook was in the news again. He did another op-ed. His op-ed last year was very famous, his coming out op-ed. This year, his op-ed was about, and I'm going to get this wrong because I'm Canadian and all your laws are confusing and scary to me, but there were propositions in several of your states, of which you have many. Indiana, and Arkansas, yeah. And I don't know what they were about, but a lot of people on the internet were really upset about them. And Tim Cook came out and said that basically Apple believes in equal opportunity, equal employment, and it's something he's been fighting for years. And he did that first on his personal Twitter account and then in an op-ed. And reaction was interesting. Some people are like, why don't you shut up and run Apple? And other people are like, you are being that role model that, you know, that a lot of us desperately wanted and desperately needed. And, you know, he's doing all this as he's launching the watch, as he's, you know, moving other projects forward, as he's got new phones and iPads. Jason, what's your take on, you do this as Tim really well. What's your take on
This is Tim. No, I love that he introduces himself. Like, we know who you are.
Yeah, Luca's accent is incredibly different than yours.
Yeah, now the analyst calls are even less confusing than they were before. And yet, this is Tim. Hi, Tim. You're the CEO. We know who you are. So, you know, he said last year he doesn't want to remain silent about issues that he thinks are important. But also, what you see with this trend, which is these. They're essentially called religious freedom laws, and the idea there is that people, if they've got a specific religious belief, can in some ways ignore other laws because of their
from religion or for religion.
Well, it is a very complicated thing. Okay. But what I would say is lots of businesses, because this is basically about saying that businesses can now claim a religious belief and refuse service to people who don't match the business's religious belief. And a lot of businesses in Indiana and businesses that do business in Indiana
they refuse to serve white Catholic rich people.
Well, I mean, this is one of the arguments is that technically not only could a bakery refuse to bake a wedding cake for a gay couple, they could also refuse to bake a wedding cake for a divorced remarrying couple if they were Catholic,
or a Jewish couple,
right? So there are lots of issues here. But I think the broader point is that a lot of businesses in Indiana and who do business in Indiana want to say, we're not doing that. We think this is a bad idea. We are open for business for everybody. And I think it fits into that too. Not only is it fitting into Tim Cook's story about his own personal journey and believing that people need to be treated equally and with respect, but and that goes for religion and for sexual orientation and for you name it. But it's also a business issue, and he's also sending the message that Apple is not going to, obviously, but you know, play that game and line up on that side with a lot of big businesses that are in Indiana.
It's fascinating for me, George, because Steve Jobs was famous for "it just works," and he was pure business. He didn't want to get to. If you wanted to do charity, that was on your own time. If you wanted to do civil liberties, that was on your own time. Tim Cook is not "it just works." It's "we believe." Like, he really is moving Apple forward as a social power, not just an economic power.
He's not just doing these as business decisions, and you know, he's doing this during the times of his launch where it is going to probably harm. Now their bottom line is still that they're going to do just fine, but it is going to harm their bottom line. There are going to be people that are going to be angry at Apple, that are going to deal with it, and he made a conscious choice of saying, this is so important to the movement of the nation. I want to make sure that I and Apple stand up for something, and I think that I really commend that. I commend that he not just speaks about things, but he actually backs it up, and he backs it up with his own money. He's even stated that he is going to contribute after, you know, taking care of his family and schooling. He's going to give his money that he earns to charity. So this isn't just someone.
He's going to pay for his nephew's education and give all the rest of the money to charity.
So this is not just someone that talks about how this is important and everyone else should do it. This is someone that walks it in his own life. And so I think that he's a wonderful, staunch advocate for helping move the nation forward, and I think it's really brave of him. He's taking from certain populations a lot of slack, and I think it's just something that's very inspirational.
Well, some people said that it was a little bit Hippocratic because he's not starting with Apple and Apple's executives and their boards and their keynotes. He's doing it with other people's laws.
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that, because it's not like he's saying our executive board can only be straight white males. I mean, obviously they have acknowledged that they have a diversity problem, and last year's diversity report was kind of that first step to being like, here's where our numbers are. They're not where we want them to be. Here's how we're going to fix it. I mean, you and I have had discussions before about how I'm still not thrilled that there hasn't been an Apple executive, a female Apple executive on the stage or on the keynote or any of the launches, and the fact that Christy Turlington was the first woman to be on an Apple stage in 5 years. Like, there are definitely some improvements that they need to make in that front. But that said, I really do think this is a shrewd and smart both business decision from Cook, as well as a very welcome personal stand, because to Jason's point, I do think that it's really important that Apple did make some sort of statement about this law, because again, they do business in Indiana. They have employees who work in Indiana, both at the retail store and elsewhere. They need to be, they need to make some kind of statement, but it could have been just a press release. It could have been from Apple marketing, just saying like, Apple condemns this law, or Apple, the company, does not believe in this, and this is this. Instead, we get Cook publicly and personally condemning the law and basically saying, not only does my company not believe this, but I'm also taking a personal stand in it, and which I appreciate from a dual force, because it's very easy to hide behind the corporate shell,
which many people are.
He's putting his signature on. He said that. He said his heroes were Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. And he wanted to pave that road. He wanted to put his brick in that road. And it is interesting because, as much as he comes out in the sweater and introduces things, and it's almost like the happy uncle, he does have that ability. Like, he's got that Southern charm, but there is sort of this presence to him, and I think lending his personal voice in a way is much more powerful than Apple Corp, saying anything.
Of course, he's a very powerful man, and a lot of people look up to all of the things that he's been doing. And again, Apple products are everywhere, so it's a wonderful thing that people that buy Apple, we buy into not just Apple as a product, but also what is the ecosystem, what does that stand for? And he stated specifically, we're not going to be discriminatory, we're going to serve to everyone, and we don't stand behind press.
Yeah, and it's the theme of this conference is motivation. And I think sometimes people just don't believe Tim Cook when he comes out and says what his motivations are. And I think he's pretty clear about them, Jason. I think he really means the stuff that he says. Like, we want to make great products, we want to enrich people's lives.
Yeah, his story is one of what motivates us, what makes us believe what we believe, and that at Apple, that means these are the reasons we make these products. And in his life story is a very specific one. He grew up in the South, witnessed racism firsthand, was a gay man in the South growing up, so witnessed issues presumably that he hasn't talked to in a lot of depth about relating to his life, whether it was directly to him or just to others. And that's part of his personal story too. So of course those are in his values. And those mesh in a certain way with Apple's corporate values, which already exist. So, I think it's powerful. I think his story is powerful, and it's great that he's standing up for this because people need to.
There was some, because Becoming Steve Jobs came out was it a week ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of press surrounding it, and Apple's executives lent their weight to it. And a couple of people asked, originally Tim Cook, as soon as Tim Cook took over, Apple was doomed. There were actually headlines saying, "Fire Tim Cook." And those have gone away. But in every interview, he's still asked about Steve Jobs. Do you think we'll get to a point where Tim Cook is the story and Steve Jobs is sort of mentioned every once in a while? Or do you think Steve Jobs being Steve Jobs always going to be there?
Well, I think that it's, he's never going to be able to replace Steve Jobs. He's going to be able to do something different and give, a new, different, a little bit of his own pathway to Apple, and which is wonderful because he's actually doing that. He's dealing with charities, he's dealing with different social issues, and making Apple a much more social company, which is great because that's the tide that is turning just with culture in general. So I don't think it's ever going to go away. I think that people will always want to know about Steve Jobs because he's so iconic and because we lost him too soon. And so there's a piece of mourning that we go into when we lose someone before we were actually ready to lose them. And so he's probably going to have to deal with that, but he deals with it with such class and grace. And I don't think that it bothers him. I think that he also felt very strongly for Steve. He had a really huge personal relationship with it. So yeah, I think they all handle it really well.
Yeah, no, I really do feel also that the narrative has kind of shifted from that, can you replace Steve Jobs? Because this man, the true successor to Apple. We really have moved on to Tim Cook's Apple and what Tim Cook's Apple looks like. And while I think that Steve Jobs will always be a part of that narrative because Steve and Tim were very close, and arguably, Jobs, their working relationship has innately shaped how Cook is going to build Apple. That doesn't mean that he is a sock puppet, but it means that Steve Jobs will always be a very important part of Apple, and thus I think will always be part of the Apple narrative. But I do feel like even in that most recent interview that he gave, it was very briefly mentioned. Yes, you know, his name is on the door. Yes, you know, I still think about him, but I don't go in the office every day. That's not, you know, it's not the shrine of Steve Jobs. It's this is the mentor. This is my mentor, and this is, you know, my friend, and we want to keep the spirit of the company he started alive and going well into the future.
It was a little that was a weird passage in that interview. It was a little like, we keep the shrine, but we don't light the candles every day anymore.
Yeah.
But I feel like we've gotten there where Tim is being judged on being Tim Cook, whereas right after Steve Jobs left, it was, well, what is the job of an Apple CEO if it's not Steve Jobs? And so it was very much like putting Tim Cook in this Steve Jobs shaped hole. And now it's like now we have started to have a conception of Tim Cook being Tim Cook. And like, oh, this is what Tim Cook does, which we didn't have before. And that, I think that says something, that we now have this idea of like, this is what Tim is going to do that we didn't have when he started.
And there are things that he does that, you know, like
introduce himself on a call.
Well, whether Steve Jobs would have done it or not, there are things that you can tell feel like Tim Cook.
Yeah.
So the last thing I wanted to bring up is also coming, and it sometimes gets overshadowed by the Apple Watch, but coming September 10th is also the new MacBook. April 10th, sorry. I am so bad at time. I should just live in the time machine. Also coming April 10th is the new MacBook, which has been, you know, we talked about this right after the event. It's sort of been like the original MacBook Air. Spencer, do you have an idea, like, should people be pre-ordering this? Should they go into the store and try it? If you know this is for you, do you know this is for you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like with any piece of new technology, and the Force Touch trackpad is definitely new technology, but being able to go in and play with it is definitely helpful. But the MacBook, I mean, the MacBook as it is, the new MacBook is designed as a very niche product right now. It is the bleeding edge future technology that Apple has put into their latest and greatest notebook. And I don't think it's for everybody. I feel like it does have a very sort of specific set of use cases right now and pocket costs, which is to say, like, you know, if you need the future and you want the future and you have, you know, a couple $1,000 to spare, then yeah, exactly. You can look at it and you can, you know, consider making that part of your lifestyle. I don't think it's the computer for people who are like, yes, I need a replacement for my MacBook Air, and I need Retina and I need it to be powerful. That's not going to happen.
Anyone in the audience planning on getting a MacBook right away? So
no,
the opposite
no
of a lot. Not even for the museums.
Not even.
It seems like it is like the MacBook is like for aesthetics over power. Like it is beautiful. It is stunning. It is about or not in gold. Like you can choose it. You got the space gray.
I feel like gold is the only acceptable color.
It is stunning. The gold is really pretty. I never liked gold. I didn't buy any of the gold, like anything. But I like the gold as well, which is so sad. But it really is aesthetically beautiful. If you're not going to be a power user and you need to get something, and you're just going to be, you know, getting something for your mom or someone else that is not, you know, not that moms can't be power users, they surely can.
I have relatives
they would want it.
Would keep putting USB into the MagSafe and shorting out the machine. And the level of stress about only having one port to worry about is fantastic for them. They're like, there's only one port. And I hear Syracuse in my mind going, I need 18 of those.
Dongles.
It's not for you if you're worried about the number of ports. Yeah. And I find there's kind of a fascinating psychology of people getting upset when Apple releases a product that they don't want. They get mad.
They do.
How dare they release a product I don't want?
Their time to be spent on me.
But you're going to want it in a year and a half when all that technology filters into your regular life.
They're guinea pig products.
And some people want it. Some people will want it down, because when we talk about powerful, I mean, yeah, this is a Core M processor. It's not that fast, but there's a whole huge percentage of Mac users who don't need that power.
Yeah.
And so for them, it's fine. It's thin and light, and it's powerful enough, and they don't need anything, you know, anything to plug into the port other than the power plug, and they're going to be happy with it. It's just people in our circles who think about this stuff a lot and
we're
have
plugging
lots of
into
gadgets.
microphones and doing a hangout and, you know, camera.
It may not be for us.
No. But that's okay.
And that's okay. Thank you, George. Georgia has had her influence on us.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
All
There's no
okay.
judgment here.
No judgment.
No judgment. Safe space.
It is a safe podcast or a safe zone.
Yes.
Yeah, so big Big spring. Apple hasn't had a big spring in 2 years. There was nothing up until WWDC, and now April feels jam packed to me.
Yeah, I mean, this entire year is going to be quite something for Apple. Between the MacBook, between the watch, between God knows what we'll get at WWDC,
That
and
hovercraft they're probably
yeah,
working on somewhere.
cars.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's
and
a movie
iPhones
called
and
Cars.
iPads in the fall. Like Apple has a really strong 2015 planned, and I'm really excited to
It's
kind of
the
see where they go.
biggest product lineup Eddie Q has seen in a long time.
Been
That's
waiting
what-
for years.
yeah. So maybe a new Apple TV, Jason.
That's what everybody's saying. It's about time. It's past time.
Yeah.
It's long past time. So I hope we see that at WWDC or thereabouts.
But do they have to have their act together? Like, so, like, I'm in, George and I are in Canada, and that means that whatever awesome content deals, people in Ireland know this too, whatever awesome content deals come with an Apple TV, we won't get them.
No.
We asked HBO Canada about HBO Now. They're like, ha ha ha. No. So, like, we only care about the hardware, and the hardware could have been released years ago. There was no problem with the hardware. Hardware's been done. That team is the Apple TV team is under Eddie Q. It's not under like the same team that does the iPhone and the iPad. Those people can just ship when hardware and software ready. When you have services thrown in, it gets all crazy, and it must be really frustrating for them. But for us, it would have been the same box, last year as it would be this year. It's just you guys who might, be able to subscribe to ABC who get the benefit.
Yeah. Sorry, Canada.
Or
You're
Ireland.
not even sorry.
Sorry,
a little bit,
Europe.
are you?
No.
No.
Sorry, rest of world.
That's rest of the world. ROW. That's how.
Yeah.
That's
You acronym us so nicely.
honestly. That's just how it goes. Apple's strategy and most companies' strategies is get it up. If you look, Apple is actually better at international rollout of various digital things than any other company.
is true.
But you've got to start somewhere.
We still don't have
Yeah.
Amazon. Like they said, we'd have it in 2008. I checked my watch. Not my Apple Watch yet, but I checked my watch and it's past 2008 and we still have no Amazon stuff.
Not yet.
Do
We're
you have
waiting.
Time
Amazon, do you have
machine, make
Amazon,
that
Amazon Video stuff in Ireland? No? See,
No.
it's a giant
We
lie.
feel for you.
I'm not even sure it's
Completely
real.
get that.
So yeah, so we have the Apple Watch, we have the new MacBook. There'll probably be a new MacBook Pro whenever Intel finally ships enough Broadwell chips to supply it. Apple TV, new iPhones, new iPads. Jason, I want a vacation now.
It's a big year. You are making me tired of just listing those
Think
things.
about how Apple feels. I mean, they got to actually ship
Oh.
all
They have to
this.
ship all of this
I know,
nonsense
it's
and
amazing.
OS 10 and new versions of iOS.
Yeah,
Like we're not even talking about the software.
I stopped hearing what you were saying after you said the watch.
there were
Yeah.
words coming out of your mouth, but I
George
did
was
not
just
like
like,
them.
I need the whole time
Waiting for
to
the watch.
Yeah, iOS 9, OS 10.11. Sorry, Daniel Delpit.
Yeah.
The naming convention.
The numbers
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah, maybe it's like a clock. We'll get 11 and we'll get 12 and then we'll
It'll loop
reset.
back around.
Yeah.
I'm still saying iOS 10. I think it's just time to. After iOS 9 is next year going to be iOS with a big X.
Big
iOS
X.
X, yes.
Yeah.
I hope not.
No, just too confusing.
Yeah.
Too much. Let the past be past.
All
or live
right.
in the museum.
So, Jason, if people are interested in more of your fabulous shows and just you in general, where can they go? Besides right here, right now.
Right here.
Right, besides right here, you can read things I write about technology on sixcolors.com. You can read things I say about whatever on Twitter, and you can hear my podcasts at Relay FM and at theincomparable.com.
Any big incomparable episodes coming? I mean, you finished your Revenge of the Sith spectacular.
Yeah, well,
What's
we've got
Yes, we did.
we've got some. The current episode that's up is us watching a bad movie called The Ice Pirates, which is a bad movie.
I can't believe neither Tony nor
So
I was
bad.
on.
I can't
that.
believe it either. You'll have your chance with another terrible movie at a later time.
I don't know if I can watch it.
And the Total Party Kill is on there, which features the Dungeons and Dragons playing talents, the older episodes of Serenity Caldwell, and the current episodes of Georgia Dow. So if you'd like to hear these people play Dungeons and Dragons on the internet for your amusement, it
can
is
happen.
available.
Dungeons,
You can actually do that.
And Jason, I hear we are doing something incomparable related actually at OOL.
At OOL later today, apparently there's going to be a performance at the Incomparable Radio Theater.
Really? Did you know about this?
No,
Okay.
wasn't
Yeah.
aware.
Well, we'll see who shows up.
I've been made
for that.
aware recently that this is happening.
I heard- yeah.
Georgia, what about you? Where are you found on the interwebs?
Yeah, around. You can catch me on Isometric Podcast, Vector Podcast.
Isometrics about gaming?
Isometrics about gaming from a different perspective.
Yes.
And there's Vector, a few others. I'm on to Old Party Kill. I'm going to be at, I don't know if this is going to come out before, but on
Yep.
April 10th, I'm going to be at NS North. I'm going to be doing the keynote. And
They got sick of Don Melton, so they invited Georgia this year. Hi, Don.
No, they did not. No, they did not. And you can also check me out on Twitter. It's at Georgia_Dow.
Trinity?
I am online at Settern, SETTERN, on many of the things, including Instagram and Twitter. I'm here at OOL. I am at iMore.com every day. I'm on the incomparable.com and
Busy as someone at Apple.
floating elsewhere. Sometimes
On skates.
Great.
On skates.
Yes,
Roller
exactly.
skates.
I only
Roller
have 4
skates.
more trips this year. I'll be at Yosemite later this year.
Yeah.
Later this next month.
Next month.
It's almost. It's April
Next month is
tomorrow.
later.
Yeah,
Are you
it's
later
later
this year?
this year.
I am
That
too.
is
Which
true.
way is the
Later
snow
this
with
year.
Guy English is at the back of the room?
Yeah, Jason and Guy will be with me at Yosemite along with a host of other really awesome people, and also Yosemite. I
Yes.
think all the tickets haven't sold yet.
Yeah,
It's kind of crazy.
You could go. You
I
just have
know.
to go. Yosemite.
Yosemite up.
By Coco.
Yeah.
By Coco Conf.
If Ali was with us, you would be able to find her at iModel. If Peter was here, you'd be able to find him at Flarg. You can find me at Renee Ritchie. We're going to continue doing activities from here. We're going to have debug at 6 p.m. British Summer Time,
Yes.
which I believe is 1 p.m. Eastern Time and 10 a.m. Pacific Time.
It's a miracle if I
I think you're probably right.
I will send out tweets in your general
We'll post
direction.
out actual things.
You can find me at Renee Ritchie. Make sure you keep following 6 Colors, iMore, all the things for the Apple coverage coming up because there's going to be a lot of it and no one human can do it all.
It's true.
That's it.
You know, we need help.
The iMore show was taped before a live studio audience. Goodbye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you all.
I love the